The countdown continues to the start of the 2022 World Cup, and that means we need to examine each of Iran's opponents. For today's episode, we will analyze the English national team and talk about England's horrible month of June. You know the deal, and you know what time it is. It's time for Team Melli Talk. He is from England, he loves the Three Lions, but he also has a history with another national team. Hi everyone, welcome back to Team Melli Talk. For this special edition, I am really excited to be joined by Andy Smart. He is an actor and comedian, and he is currently part of the Comedy Store Players. Andy, welcome to Team Melli Talk. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good evening to you, and thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk about one of the best summers that I ever had in my life. I'm sorry that Nick, my friend, could not make it tonight, but he's not that good with computers.
And to all our viewers, you may be wondering, how does Andy have a connection to the national team of Iran? Well, he was actually one of the stars of a documentary called The Outsiders, and Andy got to follow the national team of Iran at the 1998 World Cup. If you have not watched this documentary, I strongly recommend you watch it right away. You'll want to watch it over and over, and it is available on our YouTube channel. Once again, great to have you here, Andy. And ever since making The Outsiders, have you been keeping up with the national team of Iran?
Obviously, I've been tied in with Iran since '98, and I can't believe that they were the first team to qualify for this World Cup. Shows you what a great team they've got this year, and I really hope they go a long way. Although, obviously, they're not allowed to beat England.
Well, you got to something I wanted to talk about, and that is, what was your first reaction when you heard that Iran was drawn with England?
I thought, well, that's perfect. That's going to make it very easy for me to get heavily involved with this World Cup. And then when USA came out as well, and then Wales on top of that, it's like, well, that's the perfect group for me.
As we all know, Iran's preparation for the 2022 World Cup has not gone according to plan. But there are many football fans that are upset with England's performance so far in UEFA Nations League. After 4 matches, England has 2 draws and 2 losses, including a 4-0 thrashing at the hands of Hungary in Wolverhampton. And in fact, some people are even calling for Gareth Southgate to be sacked. So I have a couple of questions for you. Are there some problems right now with the English national team? And do you think Gareth Southgate should be sacked?
No and no. I think you've got to consider that a lot of the English team have played over 60 games this season with their involvement in European Champions League and the Premiership. So I would have rather have seen Southgate just give all those players the whole summer off. Just let them get some rest. And then we'd be fitter than Italy and Germany and all the other teams that were putting out full teams. You look at Belgium; they suffered just as badly. The players are too tired. It's ridiculous to have this many games in a season and then have a Nations Cup league that doesn't mean anything, because it should be the World Cup now. It should be a World Cup. World Cup has always been in the summer, and that's something that really makes my milk curdle, is that we're having to go to November and have it halfway through our season. So and the Southgate question, the man's got us to a semi-final of a World Cup and a final of a European Champions League. He knows his players, he knows how to, and it is quite boring because he likes a 1-0 win or a 2-0 win. But I'd take that if it means winning the whole competition. If you look at Greek in the European Championships back in, they won it by winning 1-0 every time. So I'm quite happy. I'd just like to see an England team win, if Iran don't win it, obviously.
All right, let's cut right to the chase. What is the English media saying about the match between England and Iran? Are the football pundits giving Iran any kind of chance?
They probably won't at first, but as the game gets nearer, you'll find that they will be going, oh, we've got to watch out for this team. I mean, both Iran, USA, and Wales, well, all three of them have got a good chance against England on their day. It's a knockout competition, and I know that it starts with the groups, but you need to get the top place in the group to get the best draw in the next stage. So England are going to have to try and win every game, but I know that Southgate will set them up to get enough points to qualify. So I think as the game approaches, they'll take more interest in Iranian football. It's weird because we don't think of Iran as a footballing nation, but when you've got 60 million people in a country that support a national team, that team will play their hearts out, as we found out in '98. They will play their hearts out for that crowd at home.
Besides Harry Kane, which other players do you think present the biggest problems for the national team of Iran?
I think looking at the size of both teams, I think it's going to be pretty hard for them for Iran to actually get anything from corners or free kicks, because England are going to be a much bigger team, much more physical team. So I think they're going to have to hit us on the counter attack if they want to get anything. And but then we've got such fast wing backs. I think England could probably squeak it.
It's funny, with something you mentioned, recently when I was talking about, the matchup between England and Iran, I was saying the obvious of, of course, counterattacks, but also take advantage of set piece opportunities. But you just pointed out something about the size, and that will be difficult for Iran.
Yeah. I mean, when we were in '98, I think the Iranian team they were much bigger in those days. I mean, you had Ali Tai, you had Bergami, you had Pashin Zada, you had, they were big, burly, physical men. I don't think this Iranian team don't seem quite as big, if you don't mind me saying that.
We couldn't have this topic without mentioning the obvious. What is your prediction for England versus Iran? I know we are months away from it, but we'll revisit this again eventually. But for now, what's your prediction?
Right now, I'd say England to win it by maybe 2-1.
Okay. I think Team Melli football fans would not be bothered by that scoreline at all, because it would involve scoring a goal, having something to cheer about, and the goal difference not being such a big problem.
Yeah. I think you've got a really good chance against USA, and I think you'll probably get a draw against Wales. So it depends on other results whether you're going to get that second place. But I think England will probably top the group, and then it'll be between Wales and Iran to get through.
Obviously, this episode is mainly about England versus Iran, but we can't help but talk about that awesome documentary, The Outsiders. Okay, now Andy, my first question for you about this is, what was going through your head? What was your initial reaction when you heard that you were going to get to follow the national team of Iran? I mean, what was your first reaction to that?
Well, as someone who always supports the underdogs, and I followed Farnborough, and I just thought, well, this is our chance. Nick supports Stoke, Nick Hancock, and we wanted to. Everyone else was trying to make a TV documentary about Jamaica or the England team, or follow, even the US team. And we went, no, we want to make a documentary, because Nick's wife was, as you know, has the same surname as you. She's Iranian, and so Nick was sort of quite involved with Iranian culture at the time. And he said, let's follow Iran. And I said, that sounds good to me. And then things just sort of snowballed from there. We took it to we took it to the BBC first, and we actually recorded the draw for the World Cup for the BBC, and then they dropped us. And then we showed them what we had, the footage we had, and to Channel 4, and they said, oh, we'll take it. So they gave us the money to make it. And then we just got caught up in it, and I went over to Tehran in the April of the World Cup year, '98, and saw them play against Hungary and Jamaica, and they put me on the bench. They sat me on the bench. That's where I watched the game from, in the big stadium in Tehran. I was like, this is just crazy. And then when we got to Rijeka in Croatia for the game before the World Cup, and we made big contacts with Coach Ilic, who was dropped just before that game, and then the wonderful Mr. Talibi came in, and again Nick was sat on the bench with the players at the game, and I was sat with Coach Ilic up in the stands, and it was just, and we were going, is this really happening? And then when we in Rijeka, they would say to us, we'd say, can we come and film your training? They go, yeah, okay. And then I was stood around training, and Abed Zayda, the goalkeeper, just went, well, don't just stand there, hit some crosses for me. So I had to stand by the corner flag and just hit crosses for like 2 hours. My leg nearly fell off. I was so tired at the end of it, because he just kept rolling the ball back, going again, and it was like, oh. And you don't argue with Abed Zayda. Oh no, he was a tough guy. And then I looked up the pitch, and Nick was training with all the forwards. I was like, oh, he was scoring loads of goals. I was like, oh. And we actually felt that we were part of the team. And then when we got to France, because of the security problems, we never got to actually see them for the first week. They were staying in a patisserie college.
Yeah, in Isindo.
Yeah, and we couldn't actually get in, and that was hell, because we paid them £30,000 for the rights, but it was the French SAS that were keeping us out. So then we took the head of the French SAS, Nick and I, without the producer knowing, we took him to a bar, and Nick said, if we can drink, if Andy can drink you under the table, will you let us film? And so we had a bottle of tequila, and I drank him under the table. He fell off his chair, and he went, okay. And the next day we got in. So that's not in the film, though.
All right. Well, that should be in the bonus footage, don't you think so?
Wow. Even the producer didn't know about that.
All right. For all our viewers, you just heard what Andy Report had to say, and this is some inside information. I just love it. I'm sure you all love it too. And, of course, now getting to the obvious match from that experience, from that summer, the interesting thing that took place, talking about the match between the United States and Iran. Nick got to be at the stadium, at the Stade Gerland in Lyon, and
yeah.
you got to watch the match in Tehran on television. But, when looking back at it, do you feel like you got the better end of the deal by getting to see the excitement and the euphoria of the Iranian people?
I definitely think I got the better end of the stick there, because it was just, the game finished at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And everyone was, because the mullahs had said that no one was supposed to gather in groups of larger than 12. And they weren't allowed to celebrate if they won, and all this was. And then we came out of the restaurant where we watched the game, and everyone was like, "What should we do? What should we do?" And everyone wanted to celebrate. And there was a 14-year-old kid on a motorbike with an Iranian flag, and he just drove down that long street up the center of Tehran, and he was just banging his horn and going, "Yeah!" And that was it. That was like the signal. And everyone just poured out of the restaurant, and everyone was heading to all the main squares, and there was fireworks, and, you consider there was no alcohol involved. It was one of the biggest parties I've ever been at. And it was incredible. The atmosphere was absolutely unbelievable. I'll never forget that night.
An amazing night it was, absolutely. And for me, that's still a night I will never forget as well too. But for me, of course, I was watching it, earlier in the day in California. So I think the way I celebrated was I just, lit a firework in my backyard. I'm sure the neighbors weren't very thrilled about it, but oh well.
Yeah.
Have you remained in contact with any of the players that befriended you? I remember you guys had some good chats with Mohammad Kakpour and Hamid.
Oh, Kakpour was fantastic. We on his day off in France, we took him to the nearest town, to Isingo, and he said he wasn't confident in his French, but Nick speaks perfect French, and he wanted to buy a suit. So we took him and we bought a suit. And then he came out and saw some of the other players, and he was pointing at us. And then we had to buy suits for about 5 years. And we got to know them very well. We stayed in contact with him for probably about. He was the longest one we stayed in contact with. We were in contact with him for about 10 years, and then sadly we lost contact with him. But we had a lot of fun with Azizi as well, Suzuki, as we used to nickname him, because he was just the loudest one, and he would just never. I've never known anyone with so much energy as Azizi. He was just a little firecracker, and then I became quite good friends with Matavicchia, and it was lovely. They were all so generous to us, and to the fact that we got to take Estili to the airport, and then when they came home, we got to take him back to his mum's house. It was just, I can't imagine at the time Glenn Hoddle allowing two Iranian comedians to take his best player to the airport, and then after the World Cup, take them home to his mum's house. It would not happen in the West, but in Iran, everyone was so friendly, so wonderful towards us. It was a joy.
Andy, I just want to tell you that, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. I also want you to know that I am envious of you and Nick, of what you guys got to do, getting to follow the national team of Iran. Like I said, I've watched the documentary many times. It's very entertaining. And like I said, thank you for taking the time. It's an honor to have you on the show.
My pleasure. And I hope they do well this year. I hope they do well.
Once again, Andy, a pleasure to have you. Best of luck to you in everything you do, and I hope you have the opportunity one day to meet up.
Well, if you're ever in London, come to the comedy. If you're ever in London, come to the Comedy Store, and then I'll take you to a Farnborough game, show you what real football is like.
Sounds like a plan. Once again, special thank you to Andy Smart for taking the time. And that's it, everybody, for this edition of Team Melli Talk. As always, really do appreciate the support. Make sure you get to our website, www.teammellitalk.com. Remember, this is your best source for the latest news on Team Melli, the national team of Iran. Make sure you find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The handle, @Team Melli Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification button. See you on the next edition of Team Melli Talk.